Hello everybody, this is Gregory with how I lost over 100 pounds and I've kept it off for 30 plus years, where there should be no hesitance in your weight loss and maintenance. Today we're going to talk about the need to adjust your caloric expenditure as you age. Now before we begin, if you need help with the weight loss, contact me through the Clarity FM link found here in the episode notes. Also check out my website that has a lot of articles and recipes. Check out my podcast, it might be useful to you. And if you appreciate my content, there is a link for PayPal, you can make a donation. All right, so I think this is pretty revelatory, or I should say it's not revelatory to a large amount of people, but it needs to be said, and that's why I'm going to include this in the foundational series of kind of like that, laying the groundwork of long-term weight loss and weight maintenance, is clearly you can't be adjusting the calories you were at 22 at 72. I think most people understand that. Now look, FDA, and we have issues with the FDA and the USDA. I think the USDA has always said that women should be on average consuming about 2,000 calories a day, men 2,600. Now, again, that's based on a lot of factors: age, height, weight, physical activity, and so forth. But it kind of gives us a standard of where we need to be. And if you look at what we can, quote, get away with when we're in our teens, I mean, many of you have teenage children, or you're around teenagers, or you're a teenager yourself, clearly they can eat a lot more food. Why is that? Well, they have a faster metabolism. They're growing. And even you could say this in your 20s and 30s when you're no longer growing, you're going to have a faster metabolism. In general, the body is more equipped to burn calories more efficiently in your 20s and 30s than in your 70s. Also, we have exercise to kind of serve as a safety valve. Now, I don't recommend calorie in, calorie out, and that's something that I'm going to talk about later on, but you can kind of use calorie in, calorie out as a safety valve when you're 25. Like, for example, if you go and drink quite a bit, or you eat tons of cheeseburgers and hot dogs and all these things, you can go burn that off through cardio and strength training or whatever you want. Can't necessarily do that as you get older. Certainly you want to be in shape in your 50s and 60s where you can still run or lift age appropriate weights and so forth, but you have less leeway. There's an old saying: why don't you see a lot of 80-year-old fat people? Because they're dead. Because they're dead. You don't see a lot of obese geriatrics. It's because they're dead. What you see in terms of the geriatric population is mostly, and of course there's exceptions, like my mom is 82 and she's overweight, but as a whole, most people in their 80s and 90s are skinny, or at least regular weighted. Now, many of them maybe didn't make a concerted effort to restrict their caloric intake or eat less calories. Maybe they just don't have as much of an appetite, or maybe they just never had that issue with having disordered eating, or eating in excess, or having a gluttonous kind of view of food. But others did. And so look, in terms of long-term weight loss and weight maintenance, as you get older, you have to consume less calories. You just do. You can't be eating when you're 80, 3,000 calories a day. Okay, there's going to be exceptions, right? Of course, just like the people who drink and smoke every day and they die at 101. It's just, okay, so there's always exceptions. But as a whole, as we get older, we have to eat less calories and eat smarter. And I think a lot of people see this. A lot of people maybe didn't eat as well in their 20s and 30s, and then they started gaining weight, and then they're like, oh, I need to make a paradigmatic kind of change. That's what we talked about in the first episode, you have to change your paradigm. And they start eating better, and a lot of them eat leaner meats, or they go vegetarian, or they go paleo, or a combination of all these things. They fast, they kind of go low carb or whatever. And so in their 40s and 50s and 60s, they make a concerted effort to eat better because they're getting older. They feel the pangs of mortality. Maybe they want to see their children and grandchildren as they get older, so they're around for that. And they make an effort to change their diet. And so not only if we want weight loss and weight maintenance, is it smart to restrict your calories when you get older, but it is in general, when you get older, you should restrict your calories. Now, if you're 25 or 30 and you're watching this episode, well, if you're watching this episode, you're probably overweight. That's the reason you're watching this episode. And so naturally through fasting, which I think is pivotal biohack for anyone who wants to lose weight or even maintain the weight, through fasting, you're likely going to restrict your calories. And the studies have showed this with fasting. It's unless you're just gorging on food in your 6-hour eating window or 4-hour eating window, whatever it is, 10-hour eating window, you're going to be eating less calories than if you were eating 3 times a day or 4 times a day or 5 times a day. So you'll be naturally restricting your calories. But I would tell you, in your 20s and 30s, you have a little more leeway because you're exercising. But if you're listening to this in your 50s and 60s and you're overweight, it is going to be harder. I'm not going to lie to you. It is going to be harder. And it's going to be harder for me at 48 to maintain my size 35 waist as I get older, and I know that. And luckily, I can still exercise. I can run maybe a 9-minute mile for 5 miles, but I understand on one level that all these things are going to catch up to me, and so I'm going to have to restrict my calories and lower my caloric intake as I get in, God willing, get into my 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, and just understand in terms of like weight loss and weight maintenance long term. And if you're overweight right now, which I'm assuming you are, you're going to have to restrict the calories to a certain extent, exercise. And then when you lose the weight, which you will lose the weight, just understand when you get into your middle age and geriatric years, you're going to have to restrict it even more and try to maintain your physical fitness as age appropriate as you can. Guys, post in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Please hit the like button right now. Hit the notification button and subscribe if you haven't done so. Until next time, take care, God bless, and pray.